Hi there, welcome back to the Rachel Mueller podcast. If we haven't met yet, my name is Rachel and I'm a coach, intuitive healer, mentor, new earth leader, and I am just waking up here, so my voice might sound a little morning-y, but I get to chat with a woman today named Alison Beale, who is a clinical hypnotherapist over in the UK. So we are going to talk about all kinds of good things when it comes to past lives and being on this spiritual journey. So Alison, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm really honored to be here. And thank you so much for getting up so early to accommodate the time difference.
Yeah.
And hello to your lovely listeners. I'm Alison Beale, and I live in Birmingham in the UK with my partner, Julian, and we have two beautiful Maine Coon furry babies called Merlin and Star. And so what do? I am a clinical hypnotherapist, but my passion and what I specialize in is the past life regression stuff. So for me, it is a really powerful tool to awaken the inner warrior in people and reunite them with who they truly are, you know?
Yeah.
So I practice past life regression. So I am trained in BQH, which sort of stems off the QHHT world. And I also qualified in introspective hypnosis, which we can talk about a little bit more. And this differs a little bit because we sort of dig a bit deeper for the root cause. And we also work with souls in distress with the introspective hypnosis. So lost souls or attachments, and we can chat about that a bit more if you're interested about that as well. Yeah, and then I also do past life therapy. And I know on your previous podcast, you and Danielle Ray Lynn spoke a lot about timeline therapy. Yeah, so the past life therapy is very, very similar to that. So in the sense that you're not in a deep hypnosis trance state, just a relaxed state. And the goal as well is just to get to the root cause of the problem. And that could be in this lifetime, perhaps childhood, during your time in the womb, the birthing process, and it can even go further back to a past life. So that is what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that introduction. I will say, like, part of my spiritual journey was doing a past life regression. I've done a couple, but there was a really powerful one where,
Really?
yeah, I was in a book club with women that was like self-development, but it kind of turned spiritual a few years ago.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and kind of like our final meeting or one of the last ones, we had this woman come over and run us through a past life regression, and it was like, you know, set a big intention at the beginning, and I wanted to learn about my karma or history with men.
Yes.
And there were like 5 lifetimes that I kind of remember. The first one, I think I was kind of like a kid and like a baby, and I was kind of left alone. And then I was like a young boy and I was sitting in front of a fire, kind of feeling like very tribal. And then the third one that I remember, I think I was in like kind of the old UK, like Victorian times or something, because I had this big dress on, and there was like a young man that tried to take advantage of me, and I was very angry and tried to like push him off, and very upset. And then the next life, we like kind of all of a sudden skipped to, then I was like in love with a beautiful man in like this kind of cottage foresty, like Snow White, very beautiful like relationship. And then the one before we came out of it, I was an old man and I was like kind of dying, and I hadn't treated my wife like respectfully at all. So I was like, when I'm gone, like I'm gonna watch over her and protect her.
Oh.
And this was on a Thursday. And the next Tuesday, I kid you not, I cried before work, I cried at work, I cried all day. Just this huge like processing and integrating and
Yes, and a release. Yeah.
yeah. And I know that's
Yeah.
not everybody's experience, but that was a very like, oh, okay, I set this huge intention and I was ready to kind of receive these messages or feel those feelings, and I just like let them all go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. It's such a powerful tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're ready
Absolutely.
for it, because I know like there's a couple of spiritual groups that I go to here, and a couple months ago I went to a metaphysical store, and the speaker that morning was another past life regressionist, and I hadn't heard this before, but he was kind of talking about the different ages of souls, like infant souls, young souls, mature and old ones.
Yes.
And he talked about, you know, he kind of finds that mostly old souls come in for past life regressions. I don't know if you've kind of
Yes.
experienced that, but I'd love to hear kind of what are some of your experiences working with people that you've had?
Yeah, so I have all sorts. So from the younger and the older, and yes, it's mostly, you know, in the beginning it tended to be exactly what he said. So many of my clients were already very spiritual, and the big question they had is, you know, what is the reason I came, and am I doing everything I need to be doing? Am I on the right track? Yeah. So indeed, you know, it is crucial that, you know, you are ready for that session, and even if you only get a little bit in your session, you know, I believe that is absolutely divinely led, you know, the person you see, and what you get on that day. Right. So I always describe it to my clients as the like a massive library, you know, the Akashic records that we go into, and we have that limited time, you know, that we spend in there. So your guides go with you on the session, and your higher self, and you know, if they go. And the library is huge, and there's so many books, and you don't know where to start. And they go, look here, and look here, you know, and then they bring you what you need for your highest good on the day. So that's what I find, you know, tends to happen. But I have had instances where, you know, it's not that my clients don't experience anything, but I do find that on the odd occasion that I think to myself, that this is a start to their journey. So it was meant to happen, but it was only a start to the journey, and they weren't actually ready. And you kind of want to jump ahead, you know, and you know exactly what it is that they need to experience and see and hear, but you can't interfere with that journey, can you? So you need to, you know, step back, and that's the wonder of these sessions, because people experience these things for themselves. You know, so it's not someone telling you, you know, what you need to do or what's happened to you. You actually experience it for yourself. And it's so powerful, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think that reminds me, I think a lot of people who, you know, sometimes when I say I'm into spiritual stuff, or let's do a reading, or let's go to it, they have this fear. They're kind of like, I'm kind of afraid. And I'm like, so you're right, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's your own stuff. You're not going to be shown
Yes.
anything that you're not ready for. And I think some of those old fears stem from old witchcraft and kind of these old dark, quote, dark beliefs surrounding this stuff
Oh,
too.
yes, I think you're spot on there. Do you know how many of us have in past lives been persecuted
Yeah,
for knowing and for standing up,
a lot. Yeah,
and spreading the word.
yeah,
So when that lifetime ends, what do you think is going to happen in the next lifetime? There's going to be a bit of a apprehension. There's going to
yeah,
be a bit of, well, this happened to me last time. I
yeah.
had a beautiful one of a gentleman who he explains the trip in to the mother's womb as in, this is the way he was shown it in a session. He was in a little spaceship, and it was it was so cute. And he was on his own, and he was coming in the little spaceship, and he kept saying to me, he's thinking, well, what is the point? It's just going to happen again. What is the point? It's just going to happen again. And I was like, I wonder what this is about. Let's, okay, let's see, let's see how this materializes.
Yeah.
And then later in the session, there's a lifetime where he was a monk. And he was living in this cave, and the people from the community came and they up to his cave and they captured him and they threw him from heights to his death. And so this is why he had that apprehension, when he came. And so for him, that was wonderful, to know,
Right.
that was why he had that apprehension. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is just that, as easy as that understanding, because I know that I think for me on this journey, just finding spirituality and these tools, like, oh, I just like understand why I'm here so much more, and I can push back against old stories that said, like, I don't want to be here right now. I'm not meant to be here. I'm lonely. I'm isolated. Like, I'm not good enough. So it's really helped me give me a more empowering meaning and story instead of the old victim story.
Yes. It's very empowering.
Yeah.
And it explains, little things, even the suffering that we have,
Right.
it can sometimes, not always, but I find sometimes it can explain and people understand more why they had to go through what they went through. There was another one where this person was, so when I had the initial chat and consultation with them, they were telling me about all the different jobs, that they had, and at some point they needed to have two jobs at the same time, and they went from one job to another. And then we had the session, and he was a woman in that lifetime, in a past lifetime, and he was married, and it was all about, status and money, and the partner was on they lived on a beautiful farm, but it was boring. Absolutely boring. And in the session, she in that lifetime would sit by the window and watch the grass, the long grass, just sway in the wind. Utterly bored. And this is why the soul then chose to have this lifetime where there were so many different jobs. And you kind of, think, well, why is this happening to me? And you feel sorry for yourself. But you chose that for yourself.
Wow.
Yeah. So even within that, it can be empowering, and it can break a cycle. Once you realize what you need to realize, you know, and you go, okay, well, then that can break that cycle, you know?
Yeah. That kind of reminded me, can you maybe explain or talk about, like, so a lot of us have had many lives, and then is it that we've, like, taken a vow, or we said, like, I'm gonna forget those when I come back to Earth, because otherwise it would be too much to kind of remember? Like, what does that kind of look like? Or
yeah, so it's very interesting. A good reference for that would be, I don't know if you've heard of Michael Newton. No. Dr. Michael Newton, he wrote a book called The Journey of Souls.
Okay, I have heard of that book.
Yes, and then the second one is The Destiny of Souls.
Okay.
And I promise you, it's super interesting because what he focuses on in his sessions, and I focus on that as well a little bit. So what we do if you sort of do the traditional session, you do the lifetime and significant events in the lifetime, and then you go to the moment that the body dies, and then you take them. Where do they go from there?
Yeah.
And then at that point, they will spend some time with soul family. The higher self comes through really strongly, and again, it depends on what they get on the day, but often the higher self comes through very strongly, or a guide comes through very strongly. They will sit on a bench, and an angel will come and sit next to them. They could see their soul family. And you know, it's the most beautiful thing. I often have people, you know, when they have that moment with the soul family, they burst out into tears because they feel the love, you know, that incredible, you know, love that they feel from their soul family. And it's just so much. They unconditional love, so they just burst into tears. It's beautiful. And sometimes they will, I have had instances where they will tell you a little bit about, you know, the planning of that life and why, you know, and then they'll get answers to the questions that they have. And again, like I say, it's not every session, but it often happens. Now, getting back to Michael Newton, he specifically did research and did many sessions into and just focused on that specific time where the soul spends a lot of time. And I imagine he also worked with quite a few clients that so you know the different stages of trance. We have, just bear with me, and I will get you to that. So we got alpha state, which is a light level of trance, and then you get the theta state, which is sort of, you know, a bit deeper than that, relaxed, a bit drowsy. And this is where we sort of can start reaching the subconscious mind. And then the delta is the deepest one. But within the delta, there's another even deeper level within the delta, and that's called the somnambulistic state. So a lot of his clients, I imagine, were clients that were easily going into that. Not everybody can go into that state. And I will say, you know, I have found myself that the more I do this, the more I, you know, because I am in the privileged position of having fellow practitioners, lots of fellow practitioners. So we practice with each other, you know, on because we're all also constantly growing and learning. So we practice with each other when the need arises and we realize we have a little bit of work to do. Yeah. We have sessions, and I find the more I do, the more I see, and the deeper I go.
For sure.
Yeah, but so there is this massively deep state, and I imagine, and this is the same with Dolores Cannon, with her work. You know, a lot of her clients were clients that was reaching this very, very deep state, and where all her books come from, and that sort of thing. So, when they're in that state, they get a lot of information, and they often don't remember a lot of what they said. Yeah. When they come back to full consciousness. Very interesting. So those books I highly recommend about, you know, the answers to your question, because it's a wide question, that one, you know, about, you know, how we plan, you know. The other interesting thing, Rachel, is, remember, we call it past lives, but it's not the right term to use. Everything is happening all at the same time. So for us in this 3D sort of level and body that we're in, we can't fathom, you know, outside of time as we know it, you know, but everything is happening at the same time, you know. So it's very, very interesting.
Right. Yeah, even just trying to wrap your head around that one is mind-blowing. But like, for example too, like I was saying, like I woke up before this, and I've definitely found, like you said, like the more I've been doing spiritual work or whatever, sometimes when I'm between falling asleep or waking up, I do get these just very clear messages, or see things, or understand things. Like before I was waking up this morning, like it was a very clear message of, and I could just kind of see it and feel it in a different way than I can articulate it now, just how souls chose to be here on Earth. And I saw me and a couple people around me in my circle, just like, like we've known each other elsewhere, but we, you know, said we were gonna be in each other's lives at this time right now. And it's very like, symbiotic is not the right word, but we're helping each other grow, and it was just a very
yes, absolutely. And I find that with my group as well, you know, there's a few of us that recognize each other, and when we have sessions with each other, it's like really freaky things happen because we are so family. Like one of the practitioners, we had a session with each other, and she was lying down on a yoga mat, and I was looking at her, and all of a sudden I started seeing a baby in front of me on the yoga mat. And just, you know, when you blink, and when you blink, she's back. But for a moment there, I saw a little baby. I was like, why am I seeing a little baby? And then the session material sort of goes on, and then she's like, you know, an absolute tears, and she's crying, and she says to me, you, my grandmother in this lifetime. And you know, I use, when I speak normally, you know, my voice is very different to my hypnotic voice. And so when I used my hypnotic voice and did the induction, that's when she started crying, because the memory of her in that lifetime, and I as the grandmother reading her stories in that same voice, and that's when she recognized it. So, you know, we're all, you know, being brought together Yeah. And yes, if you read Michael Newton books, a very, very prominent thing in there is them explaining the soul groups, and so the soul groups work together. So that we learn lessons. So, for example, we choose something to come and work on. Not one thing, but we choose a few things for our soul's growth. And say, for example, and it's not always going to be nice lessons, is it?
Yeah.
So, say, for example, you think, wow, I always imagine you sitting around that table, with your guides and, your angels, and you're planning this life and they're giving you advice. And it's like, okay, so what can we work on, some more? And forgiveness comes up and it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not quite there yet. I need to work on forgiveness. So then you go to someone in your soul family and you're like, can you then come and play my husband in this lifetime and cheat on me, Or it doesn't have to be that a severe an example, but something like that would happen and they would come in and help you. With that lesson. And in turn, you would be helping them with a lesson that they need to be learning. It's really, really interesting.
Well, I love the visual of that, like me sitting at a table with this whole gang or crew.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard it that way.
I love that vision, but Rachel, sometimes I sit there and I slap my own hand and I go, why did you play that?
Right.
Because sometimes our challenges are quite they're harsh.
Yeah, exactly. I worked yesterday at one of my jobs and then went to a short reading after. It was like a gallery and I saw it only like yesterday, but it was like walk in and I was like, okay, and I was late, but you just said one of the things the readers told me was some of your lessons have been very harsh, and you just used the word harsh. And I looked up the definition when I was there.
Oh.
I'll do it again here on my laptop.
Interesting.
Unpleasantly rough or jarring to the senses, cruel or severe. And then she said, some of the lessons that you've gone through have been harsh. So talk with your guides now and ask or command like some of these lessons to be a, quote, more softer landing.
Okay.
Like what if you can learn the lessons without kind of this huge, jarring, very intense. Because I've had a number of those in a kind of just short amount of time. So I was like, well, cool, if I can talk to them. And you gave me the visual if I am talking with them at a table, like, what is going to come up in the next couple months if I work with that.
Yes. Yes. You can go back there, and talk to them.
Yeah.
And yes, we absolutely can ask for, we don't always, they're there to support us. We're not alone. Yeah. That's the big thing. They're always there to help, and we can ask for a softer landing. And sometimes these sessions help with determining whether it's a lesson that you plan for yourself, or we could even have, in past lives, we could have done promises, made vows or pacts, or done oaths, and that impacts this lifetime as well. So, for example, in just a short example, in a previous lifetime, if you had, joined a religious group and you made a vow of poverty, then you've made that vow, so you may come up against that in this lifetime, as well. And a lot of people will say, well, why am I, struggling financially?
Right.
And if you then, in the session and in that lifetime realize that you've made that vow, we can break that vow.
Yeah.
And then, bring in that abundance, and it's a lot of that sitting around that table is you making contracts. Yeah. So, you make contracts with other souls. And we do it for ourselves, and then some of us come for special assignments, depending on what's going on in the world, to come and help, with specific things. It's very interesting, the different reasons we come, and why we're here, and what we need to learn. And then also the little things that impact. So like I said, the vows, and the oaths we make, with the past life therapy that I do, we work a lot with that moment from the moment that body dies. What is the last thought that you think in that body? So again, you could be cursing someone. Say, for example, and this is where, we were talking earlier about the reasons why we're apprehensive about, standing in our power, and doing this work, because, in a past life something happens. So say, for example, you were a witch in a previous life, or even a healer, and you were doing good and, helping people, and all of a sudden, they capture you and they hang you or burn you at the stake, and imagine those people yelling things at you. What are the thoughts going to be that going through your mind? Who's going to look after my children if you have children? Why is this happening? What did I do wrong? And then those people shouting at you, you may, curse them. So it's that last thought that goes through the mind that could be, that I find is a very, very powerful thing, because it could be impacting this lifetime and preventing you, from being who you truly are, and what you're meant to do. So, yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah, I know that I've been a healer, and I know that I was a witch and I was cast out. So as you were saying that, I was having some, I wonder what. Yeah, I don't think it was good. And a couple years ago in this journey, I think I was reading a blog post, from some spiritual woman or whatever, and she had a sentence that said, like, us witches were burned at the stake, and I just, like, started to cry. So I was like, oh, I wonder if something happened, and I later had it confirmed. And it was confirmed too that it was, I was a healer. It was like using your quote powers for good. I wasn't doing hexes or curses or whatever. And right, that fear is, my soul remembered that at some level, like, oh, okay, you can't be safe who you are. And I've obviously, worked through that, and there'll probably be more layers as I go on this journey. So it's all just, like you said, very interesting and important for me, I think, to understand, because I want to achieve certain things, or I want to, help people in a certain way. And really, like you said, I love the word depth. I love to go deep. I love to get to the root cause, because I had to keep doing that to just like feel healthy and happy. So that's what I want to help other people too. And I think in a world where we have so much screens and social media, not that they're terrible, but people are craving that depth. And then sometimes when it comes up, people are like, ooh, that's a lot. But it's like, yeah, but I'm here to be deep. Like, I'm bored otherwise, you know? And like that's supposed to be here, just like this other stuff is supposed to be here. And I'm going to keep anchoring it in.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely hear you. I absolutely hear you. And, I've been shown, through sessions where I sometimes have, with the introspective, we can get quite playful, and we could have them, especially in that moment where they've gone through the death in the past lifetime. We can then have them speak their higher self to the other higher self, and often the other person in the past life is someone from this lifetime. So we ask, often we ask, if there's a perpetrator in that past lifetime, we ask, who look at the eyes, because the eyes are the window to the soul. Do you recognize these eyes? And they will often, recognize the eyes and then realize, and then the two higher selves can talk to each other. And I've had where there was two sisters that were, at odds with each other, and in the other lifetime they were brothers, and the higher self of the brother in that lifetime, once they passed away, I had them talk to each other, and he was saying to her, I'm not there yet. You have to understand. I'm not there yet. So we have to be patient. We don't always appreciate, that not everybody, is there. I like how you've a couple of times referred to this, and I often have, someone would say to me, oh, that's interesting, when I tell them what I do. And then they will go, oh, yeah. The first thing they say is, oh, well, I wouldn't want to know if I've done bad things in the past life. It's so funny. It's the first thing they say. Yeah, I wouldn't want to know if I was a bad person in a past life. So it's and the thing is, there is no judgment.
Right.
We come to experience everything. That's how I see it. We come to experience everything. So within your many lifetimes, you'll experience abundance. You'll experience, times of need, and being poor, and you experience healthy lifetimes and sick lifetimes, and we come to experience everything, really.
Yeah. Like you said, like someone asking or saying, I don't want to know the bad, like that's the very human ego part of us that's been conditioned, like, oh, you have to be good, you can't be bad. And obviously being more on this spiritual journey, I have found to, like, we just came here to learn lessons, and we have free will to make these choices, and some of those do leave us feeling, more sad or angry or betrayed than other experiences where, like you just said, we were healthy, we were abundant. It's just like Earth is this huge, crazy playground, and I've heard in different from different teachers, like, Earth is a planet in the universe. You can come to burn through karma very quick. You learn a lot of lessons, like, very quickly. And that's really helped me understand that better too.
Yeah. So that's something, a lot of Dolores Cannon, who was sort of the pioneer of the QHHT sort of world, and started all these past life regressions. She had often clients come through, and she would always say, Earth is one of the toughest assignments you can choose for yourself. So us being here, we are all very, very, very brave souls.
That's
brave
lovely,
souls indeed.
Yeah, we aren't really taught that. Like, I think there are a lot of messages of fear and, you're not good enough and blah, blah, blah. But to really be here to face all this stuff it's again, it leads into that more empowering story than the disempowering and victim kind of story.
Yes, and I love what you and Danielle were talking about as well. And that's something I'm finding lately in my sessions as well. That victim, that victimhood. So a big thing that we do with the past life therapy is, say for example, that was that lifetime as that which I have clients speak to those people who apprehended them, speak to the people who shouted at them, tell them what they wanted to, because it all happened so quickly, and the soul barely had the opportunity to process that. So it is very powerful. And then I have them open their arms and I have them take their power back, because what it is, and that's the other interesting thing. It isn't just the ways it impacts your life, and what we were talking about before, but these things will come out in symptoms. So that which, for example, that was banned, or say for example someone who drowned, it would materialize in symptoms in the body. In this lifetime, it would come up. And this is often where, people are poorly. They go for the MRI scan and nothing's showing up, and the doctor will tell them nothing's wrong with you, and they keep saying, but there is something wrong with me, and no one's listening to you, no one has sympathy with you, and it's absolutely awful, but it is. That symptom has come up to notify you, that this hasn't been processed. And, so for example, the burning, that could be skin problems. So, any sort of like rosacea or, any sort of different skin problems you could have. There could be problems with the lungs. And I'm not saying all people who have skin problems, but it often materializes as that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why that once we have the soul processing that, and the person takes their power back, the symptom disappears, and it's a massive release, for the client, and the important thing is for them to, I get them to open their arms and take their power back. So what happens there is, a part of that soul is still trapped in that situation. So in our introspective world, We call that soul entrapment. So I say to clients, and just as you would be saying, people are fearful of working on this. And yes, it's not a pleasant experience going back and experiencing that life as that witch. But, that part of you is stuck there. And I'm saying to my clients, who is going to go and rescue that part of you? And that part of you needs to be with you. You need to be whole.
Yeah.
You're not whole. And that's why, So we have soul entrapment, which happens where we're trapped in the trauma in past lives. And then we have soul fragmentation.
Yeah.
That happens in this lifetime, especially, in childhood, when there's trauma in the childhood. And my mentor, Antonia, always describes it as a piece of Swiss cheese with the holes in it, So that's what your aura looks like, because, you at that stage, it often happens because in the mainstream, they'll talk about you protected yourself. And so you completely wiped out the memory of it. That's often, for me, that comes up as fragmentation, because I will ask, the client, where is your soul right now in this situation? And they will say, oh, yeah, it's up there. Or they will say it's somewhere, but it's not with them. And we're not at our best and most powerful if those fragments are all over the place. We need to bring all those fragments back so that we can be whole, and feel energetic and powerful and live the life that we're meant to be living. That's very interesting. And speaking of the symptoms and stuff, if people are interested in that kind of thing, Julia Cannon, Dolores' daughter, wrote a book called Soul Speak. And that is incredibly interesting, because what she did was she sort of jotted down all the different symptoms of disease, or what the word is, dis-ease, any dis-ease. And she wrote down all the different symptoms, and what her mum sort of found was the reason for those symptoms occurring, or where they occur in the body. Wherever it is in the body, or whatever kind of symptom it is, it can sort of be traced back. And recently I discovered an incredible book. It's from a book. It's from a lady that's called Yvette Rose, and it's called Metaphysical Anatomy. It's a huge, thick old book. And I'm telling you, oh my goodness, I have a symptom, and then I look it up in this book, and it's freaky, really freaky. It describes exactly how, and why I'm having the symptom and what it could lead back to, It's really, really, really interesting. So if people are interested in that, it's good to have a reference like that. So if a symptom comes up, you can just sort of look back and go, oh, okay. And it's not necessarily going to be what they say it is, but it could very well be, that it leads back to that. So it's a small example like that is, cancer is one that often, Dolores found it led back to anger issues, So there's various ways you can, trace back kind of why we're having symptoms. Julia, I like how she puts it in the book at one stage. She says everything that happens to us, happens for a reason. She says even if you stub your toe, it is because they might be saying to you, well, you're going too fast.
Yeah.
You need to slow down and look around. And, you're just going too fast. And these days we do, don't we? The lifestyle we have, we tend to go very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for sharing those resources, because that's definitely, I relate to those a lot. I found Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, where she has a list of physical symptoms and the emotional roots, and
Yes,
I basically started
fantastic.
this journey. Yeah, I had a bunch of physical symptoms, and the regular doctor was like, nothing's wrong with you, but I'm like, okay, I feel super sick, and like the more that I've learned, it's like, oh, that was an energetic imbalance, like you said in the beginning, of if the soul from a past life didn't process something, it's still showing up. Like it's just an energy there, right? It's trapped, or it's blocked, or it's still stuck or there.
That's right, yes. And I love, you and Danielle spoke a lot about this as well, where, that it's still stuck in the body, Yes.
Right, this is just a thing that I can touch, that I'm living in. And I've seen the picture sometimes that sometimes it's like we're Velcro, or like a sticky bush. Like if an experience happens and we haven't processed it or let it go completely, it's still like stuck to us, like, still on me or in me. And as you work through that emotionally and mentally and all the things, it eventually kind of dissipates. And I have experienced that in different ways.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's incredible to see how, those symptoms do go away, once the lesson is learned. Yeah. And that's the thing, we're going back to what you were saying about, the victim mode, Rachel, because, the victim mode says, well, why me? Yeah. Why is this happening to me? Why me? Why this again? But, we need to be asking ourselves, well, yes, why is the right question, but what is the lesson? Why is this happening? What is the lesson I need to learn here? So we need to stop and think, before we go down that victim mode. And I'm telling you, I've been myself, through the mill, and it's not easy, and it's easy for me to talk to others. I'm still a big work in progress on that. Every now and again I will catch myself being in that victim mode again. It's constant work. Right. But yeah, we and a part of that is, if it's fine if you want to stay in that victim mode, but you will then finish this lifetime, you won't learn the lesson, and what happens? We come back and we learn the same lesson again. It might just be with different players the next time. You may be female, next time you're male, but you will plan that lesson for yourself again. Right. Until you learn it. I have to laugh, because often if someone is stubborn in a session, Antonia will ask them, how many lifetimes did you spend, with this lesson? They might say 3, 4, even maybe more, and then he'll say to them, and how many more lifetimes would you like to spend? And that will sort of trigger them to think, oh, actually, I don't want to come do this again. So, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I just love, if someone's open to this process that we're talking about, like they do get to that state where you just said, like, no, I don't want to do that. But if and when we're just like in our busy mind or in hustle and bustle, like people aren't even aware of that pattern. So it's cool that I think us as healers and people that I talk to, we just want to create spaces for people to get quiet and hear what's already going on in their head and their body, to kind of move through it in a graceful way, in a truly integrative and processing way, instead of hitting your head against the wall because you're in a circle and it's just never ending. And because I've been there, right? And I'm sure you've been there. It's like we just want to help people through that.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, that's the whole thing about appreciating where they are, and they're not always ready, completely ready to learn that, where they are at the moment. So we just have to hold the space for them, whilst they're learning that. I was speaking to a client, a regular client that I have this week, and I've been trying to, work with her on that victim mode side. And she explained to me that, she's having a hard time of it, trying to find that forgiveness side, and she explained to me that it's a process, and how she's going through the process, and how she's, getting there, but she's not there yet. And the way she explained it to me was beautiful, and it made me appreciate and understand, that, we're all at different stages.
Yeah. And I've definitely found that in my growing up life, or quote personal life, like just being an old soul, whether in my family or around my peers or people that I dated, like, oh, I can't force you to grow with me, or I can't force you to choose me, or I can't force you to do anything. That's been a huge okay, I can just control me, and I can just take care of voice my needs and just take care of myself more. I think as that healer, I want to take care of other people, but I definitely had to go through this. No, like, I need to take care of myself. And when I'm in that place and shining the light and the example of what I want to be and what I want in my life, then people, they'll either match it, or I'll become a match for that, or, I know how to fill up my own cup instead of going around to other people like, fill up my cup, please.
Yes, and that's the other thing, it's exactly, you were spot on what you were saying there, because it's all inside of us.
Yeah.
We can't find it outside of ourselves, and so all we can do for others are, hold that space for them, and just send them love, and when they need us, we're there for them, but otherwise we can't force anything, it has to come from within them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else that you feel like you want to add or didn't get to speak on, or any other reflections?
So I work a lot about. I spoke earlier about the souls that are in trouble. So that's a whole other area that's very, very interesting, because when we, in my sessions, when I spoke about earlier, where the client goes, dies in that lifetime, and then we try and sort of figure out where they went after. And it's the important part of it, where they went after, after they left that body. And because of the, various reasons, they don't always go to the light. And so that means they become, a lost soul. And so they just sort of, they're just like you and me. and they've left the body, but for whatever reason, they decided to stay around. They didn't go to the light. And it could be for many, many reasons, They they will be conditioned, So they did something bad in that lifetime, and so they feel they will be judged because they've been conditioned that you get judged. And there's no such thing. Like I said before, we come and we experience everything. And when I said that, I meant also, we come and we're, as our soul grows, or and so how are we going to experience that we don't want to be a bad person? So, you are going to be that bad person in a previous lifetime and realize you don't ever want to do that again, So that's the yin and the yang kind of thing. How would we experience it if we how would we know what it is if we didn't experience it? Right. So anyway, to get back to the lost souls, they are they have unfinished business. They are wanting revenge for some reason. So what happens is they stay behind, and when they stay behind, they get bored. So we were talking again earlier about the aura and our different, the different frequencies in our body, and we have different fields. So, we have energetic body and etheric layer and a mental layer, astral layer, a celestial layer. So what happens is they attach to a layer, and they look for like. So I find when I work with them, I will often ask, well, why did you choose so and so? And they will say to me, oh, well, they smoke and I like smoking. So when so they don't have a lot of power over you, but they can influence you. So it makes people with, bad habits sometimes, it makes it more difficult for them because they can influence you not to give up smoking, if you want to give up smoking because they're enjoying the smoking. I mean, there's ones that are healthy. I once asked, why did you choose this person? And they were saying, well, he's a runner. He runs. I love it, that he runs. So yeah, it's interesting the reasons they give, and they can cause, a bit of influence. So they can cause you to feel down. Sometimes they're there to look after you. I had one that was a little girl that passed away, the soul. And my client was a little girl when she attached to my client. So it was that like for like. And her whole life she was with her, and she's very protective of her. And when she left, she said to me, but are you sure she's going to be okay? And sometimes I have to bite back tears in my sessions. And it was just so beautiful, when she said, are you sure she's going to be okay? And I was like, yes, of course she's going to be okay. And then, I get them to find the light, and, they go to the light and they'll tell me who's waiting there for them in the light. And then they go to the light, and it's really interesting. They can be... there's the occasional nasty one, but, I always treat them with absolute love and respect, just like my client. So I go back and I find out what happened to them. why they're there. I explain that this isn't their body, and help them to realize that, and help them to, go to the light, and explain that, they won't be judged, and that there's love waiting for them there, So, it's absolutely amazing work and interesting work there, working with the lost souls.
There's so many levels and layers at play. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So many levels. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one last thing I wanted to share about, things that happen in sessions, common themes, that happen that, blow you away, where you think, wow, this can't be, made up. Mm-hmm. Is where I have clients where they had a particularly tough lifetime, and maybe a gruesome death in that lifetime. And they often explain that they go to this place that's like a hospital. But it's not like our human hospital, it's a hospital for souls. And two of my clients have now described this place in a very, very similar way. And then they've described this cocoon bed that the soul goes into, where the soul rests and recuperates and gets time in there to heal and recuperate and rest. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. And just all the synchronicities with this, it's just beautiful. And, in my mind, there's no way you can make this stuff up.
Right. That's crazy. That's so cool to hear. Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Indeed.
It's just like there's so much out there, and I think with artificial intelligence, I was kind of talking to Rayla and Danielle yesterday about that too. Like there are like souls that have experiences, and we just pass our stories along, and I think those are very important to learn from and hear too. So thank you so much for sharing all that you've experienced. And
you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Rachel. You're welcome. I'm honored that you're having me today. And like I said to you earlier, I can talk about this all day long.
I love that. Cool. Well, do you have like a website or any social media too?
Yeah. So my website is Alison with 2 L's, Bio. .co.uk. Okay. And my practice is called Paladin Hypnotherapy, and I am also on YouTube under @Paladin Hypnotherapy. But if you search for Alison Beale, it will come up as well. And I've got some lovely meditations on there, and I'm planning on doing quite a few educational videos as well. I've got some interviews on there as well. And I'm planning on doing some educational videos just to run through the process of having a session, so people who don't know very much about it can understand. So yeah, that's sort of the next plan.
Yeah, cool. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those. I'll put them in the notes for sure to check you out. And I feel like I'm, just from this conversation, gonna go for a walk and integrate some stuff for sure.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Of course. Thank you.
Oh, bless you.